Good morning, guys, and welcome to the vlog. While many of you know that we own the Legacy Aquarium and Reptarium, maybe some of you don't realize that our humble beginnings started with BHB Enterprises, and that was a reptile breeding facility. Back in the day, we started with what was available, and honestly, there wasn't a whole lot of mutation. Let's get started with ball pythons. And this is a normal ball python. Back in the days of our humble beginnings, if you wanted a ball python, this was literally your only option. All we had were normal ball pythons, and all of these were actually imported from the wild. Nobody was even breeding them yet. They actually weren't that popular of a pet because, they're kind of plain. There's not a whole lot of excitement to them, right? And honestly, they were very cheap. But once the first mutation started being found in the wild, that's when the ball pythons really started taking off. And while ball pythons weren't something anybody really cared about, that all changed once the first crazy mutation was found. That, as you can see right here, would be the albino. Obviously, it wouldn't be too hard for a trapper to see and find this in the wild, right? And also know this is something pretty cool. So once this became available, people were going crazy. Wow, this was one of the first albino mutations that were available at the time, and it was a crazy cool animal because it was smaller, easier to work with. That kind of started the craze of people like us who decided to say, hey, let's start importing ball pythons and see what other cool things we can find. So once more and more mutations started being found, the price of different rare ball pythons definitely started going up. While this first one might have only been a few $100s, before you knew it, animals that were albinos were going for the thousands. And after the albino was found, the trappers are thinking, okay, this is a lot more money. What other kind of crazy differences can we look for? And that's when all the different mutations started being found, starting with the pastel. So these guys here are not that much different, but just a little bit brighter than a normal ball python. So they were kind of easy to see, not as easy as the albinos, but we started hand picking these ones out and asking for a little bit more money. Well, at that time, we didn't know genetics and we didn't know if any of these things were genetic or not. That's when people like us were willing to take a chance, pay a little bit more money, and actually try to prove them out genetically. That was the time when we started realizing some stuff was recessive, like the albinos, but then we started finding these crazy co-dominant genes. That's what the pastel is. During that same time, once people started seeing pastels, the next co-dom was also found, and that's the cinnamon pastel. That's what it was called back then. Now it's just short and people just call them cinnamons. Let me show you what those look like. So obviously, Brian and I weren't the first in on the albinos, but once we realized that there was some cool stuff coming out of Africa, we started getting more involved. We started actually importing animals and paying a little bit more for your pastels and cinnamon pastels. Now these were the two that, again, were a little bit different. Didn't cost as much yet because nobody really knew if they were genetic, but we were willing to take the chance. So we were some of the first ones to start importing and trying to prove out these genetics. At that time, these guys actually were proved out co-dominant. So that means you could breed this to a normal and you could get these first generation. Well, that was a game changer, right? You didn't have to wait years and raise these animals up to be able to produce them. And that was the excitement, and that's when the money started going up. So the cinnamon pastel, actually, the first ones were imported by Dave and Tracy Barker, and they're the ones who named them. That's basically the way this stuff went. Whoever imported them or produced them first made the names. So that's what they named this one cinnamon pastel, because you could see it's a little bit more browner than a normal ball python. It also had kind of a wackier pattern to it too. At this stage in the game, Brian was all in. Now we were actually talking directly with the trappers and trying to find the next cool mutation that was going to pop up. Now enter scene, pinstripe ball python. I'll never forget the day when Brian got the call from the trapper friend of ours that was over there saying, I have a really cool, really crazy ball python, and they want $10,000 for it. Back at that time, $10,000 was a lot of money. And honestly, the most that had been asked for a ball python. And we really had to think of it. The craziest thing about that too, we didn't have cell phones. We certainly didn't have pictures. So like the only way for us to know is for someone to actually snap a picture, scan it, and email it to us. So we had to actually pull the trigger, sight unseen, and send this guy money and trust that we would get it. Luckily, it worked out and we did get a really cool ball ball python. But that tells you how crazy things were back in the day and how risky a business it was. But that being said, we got a really cool looking animal, but then we didn't know, is it genetic? Is it just a one-off? So then we had to raise it up and we bred it. Fortunately for us, the pinstripe actually proved out. It proved out to be a co-dominant, so first time breeding, we were able to produce those. At that point, sky's the limit. I believe that the most expensive pinstripe that we sold was actually for like $20,000, which at that time, again, unheard of. This is when the prices started going crazy. This was a very exciting time because not only did we have first time animals available, but now we also started combining them and breeding them to see what would happen. Kevin McCurley from Nerd was also in the same boat as Brian, and both of them are crazy and obsessive, as I'm sure you guys know. So at this point, then it was like, okay, we have a pinstripe. Let's breed it to a pastel and see what happens. Guess what? We did that. We produced the first lemon blast ball python. And you're right, we were the first ones to produce it, so we were the ones who were able to name it. So all of these crazy names that you guys see, the person who actually produced it is the one who gets to name it. So now the real fun began, because as we're starting to cross the ones we have, now we're getting even crazier mutations with a lot more genes. And you guessed it, every time you did that, the price just kept going higher and higher. All right, guys, let's play a game. Can you tell me what these two different morphs of ball pythons are? All right, let's see if you guys got it right. So at this time, Brian and I started importing a ton of ball pythons, and we would just get normals. But we were hoping to get lucky, because a lot of times you would maybe get a pastel or a cinnamon pastel in those, and you're paying normal ball python prices. So one shipment that we got, Brian and I are going through thousands of ball pythons, and I noticed something a little bit different. That's right, I noticed some that looked like this. They were very similar to a cinnamon pastel at that time, but not quite the same color. You can see the difference if I'm doing thousands of normal ball pythons like this, how that would stand out. But by itself, you might think, why is that? That's just a normal ball python. But again, in a bag with a bunch of normals, it definitely looks different. So at that point, we just pulled them aside, because we're like, okay, it's definitely not a cinnamon, it's not a pastel. Let's just raise it up and see if it proves out to do anything. Well, I'm the one who found them, and so I just put my name on the box. And for years, there was 3 in the shipment, just marked Lori, and guess what? We proved them out, and they were co-dominant, and they became the Lori ball python. And these are some of the basic stepping stones that lead us where we are today with the whole ball python game. I just wanted to go over a few of those with you and let you know how far back we date with those. These actually flip us to where we are today. I'm excited to show you some of the crazy actual mutations that we produced this year. Definitely the craziest mutation we ever actually produced would have to be the scaleless ball python. This animal here was a one of a kind. Can't even believe that it actually proved out Crazy Brian's story. He actually found some ball pythons that had some missing scales on the top of their head. Not even anything very crazy, but he saw them and he's like, these are gonna be something. Actually, I thought he was insane. I was like, whatever, no way this is gonna be anything, right? Not a big deal. It's nothing extreme. Well, we took the time, we raised them up. They were a codom, which again, how exciting is that? It's a codom that had a few missing scales on the head, right? So we really whiffed on that, but he's like, no, I definitely think this is gonna be something cooler. So he raised those up, finally bred them back together. That's right, we produced the first scaleless ball python. I'll never forget that day. That was the craziest day ever. Like I said, it was probably the most excited he's ever been, because this was something that he just knew right from the start was gonna be. Nobody else really thought that was really something that could happen. And guess what? It definitely did. And that was the start of the craze of all the crazy scaleless stuff that you see today. And the crazy thing about the scaleless gene too, when you take the scales away, it does crazy things to the colors. These are both normals. And look at what a difference taking the scales away makes from the coloration. Never would I have ever guessed that's the case, but you see this in all color mutations with the scaleless gene, and it's just another really cool, fun fact of what happens just taking that bumpy scale away. Now fast forward starting another 20 some odd years. We go from the height of what Brian and I's collection was to where we are today. The things went crazy as far as all the different morphs, all the different crazy things, which leads us to where we are today, obviously downsized. So we couldn't sustain the huge collection we had, which is why we downsized and to move BHB where it is. But we still have a lot of really cool projects that Brian handpicked, and I'm going to share with you some of the highlights of what we produced this year. Starting with the Lori project. This is a spectacular show of what a super Lori ball python looks like. Now that's kind of cool and kind of crazy because just because it's a codom doesn't mean that it has a super form, but we hit the jackpot on this because not only did it have a super form, but look at how crazy and whacked out the color and pattern is. Sometimes it's slight, if anything. This one is really cool. We were very happy. Brian was over the moon. I can still remember him being so excited and taking pictures. This changes a little bit. Now it looks a little gray, but as babies, they almost have a bluish tinge to it. So he was so excited when we popped out the first one of these. The crazy thing is too, is all we had to do was take one pretty normal looking Lori ball python, breed it with another one, and then we got this crazy mutation out of that. That was just mind blowing and super exciting. Tell you what, ball pythons are amazing like that. Here's some of the crazy cool stuff we've been able to do with that super Lori gene. Now in my hands here, I have a Lori leopard pinstripe, which is really cool because the leopard gene really does really pretty things with the Lori gene, and I highly recommend if you want to pair two, those really well together. But this here is the pinnacle. So this beauty we produced this year is a super Lori leopard pinstripe. Let me just show you, it's all balled up because it's a ball python and so cute. But it's so cool. You've got that really cool like bluish gray color, but look at what has happened to the pattern. You've got that cool white on the belly, and then you've got that very speckly, very sparse patterning on there, and that really cool dark head and blue eyes. I couldn't be happier with how this guy turned out. This was an amazing clutch, and I was super stoked to hatch these. So a cool thing to see here is you've got this guy over here that is just a Lori leopard pinstripe, which it has the cool coloring, the really wacky pattern, but the super Lori really just destroys the pattern and gives you that crazy blue color. So just the slight difference in having the super makes a huge difference between those two types of animals. It's literally so crazy. Never in a million years would I have thought, way back in the day when I found that first Lori ball python, that something as cool and crazy as this would eventually come out of that breeding. Let's look at a couple more really cool crazy morphs that we're working with now. Now I'm going to show you this guy here. This is actually a pumpkin ball python. This was handpicked by Brian. You know, he had the eye for all different kind of things. This is an animal that he thought looked a little bit different, handpicked and raised, and as he was raising it up, just saw something different in it. So when he bred it out, we found out it was a color enhancing gene. So it's something that is codominant, and also when you pair it with different things, it does different cool things to the coloration in there, mainly with a more yellowy orange color, hence the name pumpkin. And you might not be able to see the difference with me just holding this. Take a look at this guy side by side with the normal, and I think you can see the subtle differences that Brian was seeing. So Brian being Brian obviously bred it to all kinds of things because you just don't know what's gonna happen when you start mixing genes. Well, one of the ones he was the happiest with was a cinnamon. Adding that pumpkin to the cinnamon, as you can see, really brought out the colors in this guy. Now again, seeing it next to the regular pumpkin, you can tell the difference. This is going to be a lot lighter and a lot more orangey color. And again, this one here is one of my breeders. So I didn't get a chance to breed these guys this year, but I have a nice group that next year we're definitely going to be producing. And I can't wait to share with you the end result of this crazy cool project that Brian definitely was excited about. Speaking of super cool things that we produced this year, I have to show you this beauty. This is one of two Sumapides that we produced. And the cool, exciting thing about this is the male to this clutch was an animal Brian was very excited about, and he never got the chance to breed it. So it was near and dear to my heart that I was able to actually breed him and we got viable babies. And I know I didn't show you all the ones that hatched because life has been crazy here, but we We had a really cool clutch that hatched out, I think 6, but there was 2 of these, and the others are super cool too. So you just stay tuned and you can start to see stuff being available on BHB. But I was very happy to actually be able to produce these animals that Brian definitely wanted to see. Now this was very super exciting because this was a first here for us to produce at BHB. And I tell you what, we were able to work with pides when they first came out back in the day, but it's just so cool and exciting to see how far all these things and all these genes have come. I'm super stoked to be able to have this one on the books. One of the projects that Brian left behind for us to figure out was the mystery ball python. Unfortunately, he never really was able to actually figure out exactly what was going on with this, and kind of left me holding the bag because this stuff is crazy. The fact that these guys can hatch such different looking animals out of the same clutch makes it even harder for us to actually crack the code of what exactly is going on with this gene. So these guys can vary a lot. Some of them actually can look a lot like maybe a regular lemon blast. Others have this really dark pattern going on. You can see the difference where it has definitely the white belly on it, and others have some other just kind of not quite, but like white or pied kind of markings. Now, while they can be very different, also some of the siblings look very similar. Look at these two. These are out of the same clutch and actually have identical markings on them, even with the spots around the neck, which is crazy, right? Because a lot of times you would think that would just be a random pied marking, but yet they both have that crazy white marking exactly in the same place around the neck. Makes everything so much more harder and confusing. The crazy thing is, even with the speckly stripe that's going in between that white mark is literally almost identical in these two animals. What is going on? Now, like I said, let's take a look at what we produced this year. These guys have the same genes, same kind of parents, but what a difference. Even though they're very similar to each other, how drastically different are they from the other ones that I just showed you? I'm telling you what, I've got to figure out what's going on in there, and it's going to take a lot of work and probably picking a few brains of a few experts like Kevin and such, but we're going to figure out exactly what's going on here. But how cool is that you can get such crazy differences out of the same kind of genes? And honestly, this is just a few examples of the differences. We've got stuff that's even crazier that's popping out of this mystery gene. So guys, we could actually do this all day because ball pythons are limitless, right? And there's so many cool things. But let's end it with this guy here. He is definitely a fan favorite of everybody here. He is some crazy weird animal that we popped out years ago. Again, still a mystery. Honestly, it's not labeled. I'd have to go and see the clutch number to even see what genes are in here because it wasn't even on his box. We just call him Smoke, and that's what he's referred to here at BHB. But he is a beautiful animal with that dark crazy color and that really pretty white belly that leaks up there. I did try to breed him this year. Unfortunately, I didn't get any viable eggs, but we're definitely gonna keep trying and see what kind of crazy beautiful animals can come out of him. I tell you what guys, this really has me thinking, and I think the next thing we should do is really focus on these mystery animals and really try to crack this case. Why don't you tell me down below what you think, and if you think we should really try to figure out that mystery of the mystery ball python.
Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, there's a playlist that you can watch all kinds of videos. You can also hit that subscription button. It would mean a lot to me. Also, hit that like button while you're down there. Have a wonderful day, Reptile Army. Remember, be kind to someone, and I promise I'll see you in the next one.